we work with the 15 largest node operators in the world,
Mhm.
like P2P, Everstake, Chorus One, Hashkey, like all the big ones, and OKX. And so they just happen to be running these Bitcoin and ETH nodes and say, oh yeah, that Bitcoin UTXO is funded. Okay, now you can go ahead and mint, and so on. If the attesters like lie or collude or something, they, because they can't receive the Bitcoin, they can mess with the system, but they just can't steal. So that's why we call iBTC a theft proof
Mhm.
protocol. So it's like a kind of a reduced version of what, like, a lot of people have built bridges, and this is like a reduced version
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
like kinda like a multi-sig, and you need both signatures to do it, and they have half the signature, but they can't do anything with it unless you sign it as well. So,
Exactly.
you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Satoshi actually had an idea in some of his
Hmm.
initial, posts for, like I think it was, like, basically purchases and without like a middleman, and it was
Mhm.
very similar with Bitcoin. What he wanted to do was essentially you have a buyer and a seller, and what happens is the buyer instead of just sending the funds to the buyer, I mean the seller, and hoping that the seller sends the goods or services, um, what he wanted to do was have an escrow contract. So this is
Mhm.
like, which is not a person, and it's the same concept as what you're describing to me right now.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is the origination of this whole idea of DLCs. But what he wanted to do was essentially say the buyer's going to send the money to this escrow contract where there's the two. It's a multi-sig wallet essentially, and the seller and the buyer both have a key, and the money can never go back to the buyer, but the money cannot go to the seller unless the buyer and the seller sign it to send to the seller. So basically,
Yep.
there's no game theoretical advantage to the seller, from not sending the goods and making a transaction. But I guess people didn't like it because he could screw over the buyer. The buyer could just never get his money back if it didn't work out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. This is, I mean, basically, without the same, the like different setup, but yeah, this is
Mhm.
like escrow. I used to call it an escrow, but I stopped doing that because with escrow in traditional finance, you have like an escrow provider,
Yeah.
and I didn't want people to think we're the escrow provider because
Mhm.
we don't get any Bitcoin, we never get custody, we don't, like, I don't want anyone's Bitcoin. I'm not a counterparty to
Mhm.
anything. We just make software that let institutions lock it with themselves and manage it on their own.
So
So
what's your business model in this? You're charging the institutions essentially for the software to run the attestation
yes,
software.
yeah. When
Okay.
when they mint and burn iBTC, we take a fee.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So it's, we just run the attester network, or, well, we don't run the node. We run one node, but the
Mhm.
other 14 are run by others. But we administer the iBTC attestation network, which is a DLC Oracle layer, which means we're actually not a crypto company. We're a SaaS company. We're just a Delaware software company. We make software that companies use if they choose to, and if once we verify their KYB and we verify that they're, legitimate companies, then they can permissionlessly mint and burn IBTC whenever they want to. So it's a pretty neat system, because in contrast, a lot of the other kind of bridge companies, they actually receive funds, and that, to me, that just, I didn't want to have that responsibility. I mean, imagine you
Yeah, you
receive
have
like a bunch of bridge funds, and one, you're
custodial.
subject to regulatory,
You're a
and two,
custodian. You're
what
essentially a
if you're
custodian.
kidnapped?
Yeah, yeah. You're essentially a custodian.
Yeah,
So you have
yeah. I
to,
didn't want to be a custodian.
yeah, smart.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that building on Bitcoin is 50 times harder than other chains. What specific technical challenges has the team overcome?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So so I've been writing code for over 30 years. I
Mhm.
know I don't look it, but I'm 40 this July.
Oh,
And
you
I
look
was
younger
a
than that.
nerd growing up. Um but so I can like hang with, whatever, Scala, whatever, like Go, but what
Mhm.
I didn't expect, the first thing I didn't expect is ideology.
Yeah, there's
Oh
a lot
my
of
gosh,
ideology in
in
this.
this industry.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah, I am a like Bitcoin first, like understand the value proposition of Bitcoin, but I am not a maximalist or anything like that. So, I'm a technologist and a futurist, and there's other blockchains are useful for other things, right? Like if I want to store my life's wealth and savings, like Bitcoin is the place to do that. but like to try experiments and do all this other stuff, like, it's like people think like, you got, to me, it's the analogy I always use is like you got bikes, you got planes, you got cars, right? Like, could I take my bike to California? Like, I could, or I could just use the plane, right? It's like if I want to go to the gas station, like, that's 20 miles away. I guess I could ride my bike, but my car is going to be a lot better. Could I take my plane there? Yeah, but it's going to be terribly inefficient, right? So, the script programming language on Bitcoin, people are always coming to me and say, "Why do you want to build everything on Bitcoin?" Well, because it's not ideal for that. I mean, it's you've got natural barriers to that. The programming language just isn't there. It's made to, you know, not store a lot of data. Do what it does very very well. TikTok every 10 minutes have a block. Make it so anybody in the world can run a node. But like if you want to build all this fancy stuff, like that's not going to work on a Bitcoin node. It's just not. It's it only stores so much data, and you want more people to run nodes, and that blockchain is producing that small block every 10 minutes for a reason, so anybody in the world can run that node and verify their money essentially, right?
Yeah, totally. And I'm glad you said that Bitcoin first. And that was one of
Yeah.
the first blog posts I wrote is like Bitcoin first
Mm.
versus Bitcoin maxi, which,
Yeah.
like if people are Bitcoin maxi, it's fine. But it's kind of like, to extend your analogy, it's like you got planes and, trains and bikes and stuff. But let's say someone's Amish and they're like, well, I want to go to California, but I'm going to ride my bike. I'm like, okay, like, I'm not gonna, like, who am I to judge
Oh yeah,
their
go for it.
beliefs?
Build it if you want to. I mean,
But like,
for
but
sure.
people are so they're so loud
Yeah.
about their
Yeah.
beliefs. And I love hearing crypto beliefs because people say like, oh, it's definitely going to be like this or that, or like, oh, in
Mhm.
5 years or in 10 years, or nobody knows anything. We
Mm.
don't know what the Bitcoin price is next week. We don't know what's going to be built in 5 years. Like nobody knows anything. So like all we know is if we're entrepreneurs, we're builders, we're experimenting, we're going to try a bunch of stuff, and customers, the market will tell us, what works and
Exactly,
what
and
not.
that's you hit the nail on the head, right? The market will tell us, and I think a lot of Bitcoin maximalists lose sight of that, right? It's like the market will tell you, right? It's like Peter Schiff, the guy who's saying like Bitcoin's going to be worthless, all this stuff. It's like, dude, the market's been telling you for 15 years that you're wrong. So, same concept, right? Like the market will tell
Yeah.
you if these other chains are gaining TVL and they're gaining more users and more wallets. I mean, there's more adoption happening. I mean, the market is telling you that people find this useful. And as somebody who's used all these different chains, I can tell you that I use them for different things and I enjoy certain aspects of them. And not everything has to be money, right? That's another thing I focus on. Bitcoin to me is digital gold, digital savings, digital, this borderless money, protect my purchasing power. And it might be different things for others, right? I mean, like, but that's the fundamental characteristics that I see, and that will never stop being useful. And it is the most important thing. It's just not the only thing.
Yeah, totally, totally. And then so like yeah, so the first thing I ran into were like some of these like moral arguments, like
Mhm.
this is evil or immoral. And I'm like, dude, your Bitcoin does not know that you own it. Like your Bitcoin doesn't know you exist. It's like just software.
It's a
So
tool, yeah.
so that was like a kind of a personal emotional challenge because I also don't want to be disrespectful to any set of beliefs, but I am also not going to argue with people, whatever. So anyway, that was interesting. I didn't expect that in the beginning. And the same from not just Bitcoin, but same from ETH or Solana heads or whatever. Everyone's got their like they're like pumping their bag and
Yeah.
so, yeah, I get it. Shilling their whatever project. I get it. The other thing is just Bitcoin development is extremely technical. Like I didn't know. I mean, I kind of try to be a technical guy, but like apparently there's like various versions of so the technology that lets us do what we do is called Schnorr signatures, which were added with Bitcoin's Taproot upgrade 3 years ago. But I didn't know there's like different implementations of Schnorr. And
Mm,
I'm like, what?
interesting.
Like there's different implementation, and I'm not on the engineering team here, so I only hear this from my co-founder.